Welcome to Hungry for Answers with me, Robin Clare, recovery coach professional. Do you love food, alcohol, drugs, sex, social media, cigarettes, or gambling a little too much? The traditional narrative says that addiction to these vices is the problem. The truth is, they are just symptoms. This hit show takes you from recovery to your ultimate life as my special guests and I help you discover how underneath every vice is the addiction to the suffering that developed due to unhealed trauma. So what can you do? Hungry for Answers provides groundbreaking, proven solutions from my best-selling spiritual book, Feast and Famine: Healing Addiction with Grace. It's time to stop suffering and start living your ultimate life. You have a divine right to a life filled with love, joy, peace, and abundance. Hungry for Answers starts now. And welcome to Hungry for Answers. This is Robin Clare. I'm so excited that you're joining us today. I have a very special guest. His name is Kelvin Young, and I saw Kelvin in a documentary. And one of the things that he said at the end was that connection is the cure for addiction. And I thought, I've got to have Kelvin on. And I know Kelvin just kind of through Facebook. He is one of the most outgoing people that I know in Facebook. And he just is out there. He is posting all the time, very uplifting things, very, very personal and very sad things too. He's just uses whatever community he has to help in his long-term recovery. So I'm excited to have Kelvin here. And he's also a wonderful sound healer. So everybody, let's welcome Kelvin Young to the show.
Thank you so much, Robin. It's an honor and pleasure to be here on your show today. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening today as well.
Yeah, great. And so I always ask everybody the same question for this to start the show. And that is, was there a time in your life where you were so hungry for answers that you didn't know where to turn? And then when you did get the answers, how did they help your life?
Well, the short answer is yes. There was a time in my life where and I was really, really hungry for answers, and I didn't know where to go. And throughout my life and throughout my journey that we call life, I was going in so many different directions. I felt like a dog chases his own tail, just spinning in circles, and nowhere to go. So throughout my journey, I was, looking for myself and trying to find myself, and trying to find myself in different occupations or different things to do, but not necessarily connecting to my essence of being and who I'm truly am within. And it was got to that point where I was able to really understand the true essence of who I am, the beingness of being human. That helped me to shift my trajectory in my life, and finding these odd jobs and odd careers and different directions I wanted to go. I wasn't really feeling fulfilled in my life because I was searching for something outside of myself to trying to find that sense of um, um, a sense of connectiveness, but I always fell short, I'm going to one job, one career after the other. But it for me, it was when I went to prison, and I was able to really utilize those practices and modalities and tools to really go within and really understand and look at my inner landscape from a perspective of beingness. And once being in there and really connecting to the true essence of who I am, I was able to shift the trajectory of my life and really truly find myself while incarcerated. And I've been on that journey ever since then. I really find myself to be of support to other human beings that's going through difficult, struggling times in their life, and utilizing sound and frequencies and vibrations to help people to go within and connect to their inner healer, their inner truth, the inner guru, so to speak, that inner GPS that can help them to navigate through life in a way that works best for them. And it was
Yeah.
from that experience I found myself.
Yeah, and there's so many things that you said that I want to touch on. One of
Mm-hmm.
them is that you said you found yourself. And what we have found, all of us who are deeply on the spiritual journey, is that there really is no finding ourselves on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
It's all on the inside
True.
because we are a spiritual being having a human being experience. And
Mm.
so all of these experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly, that's what I call them,
Yes.
are all part of our soul's journey in this
Mm-hmm.
lifetime. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree, wholeheartedly agree to that experience. And I often say that life is about learning and growing and evolving from our experiences. All the experiences I went through in my life, it made me the man that I am today. So I'm
Yeah.
grateful for all those experiences, my experience of incarceration, my experiences with addiction, all those experiences, because it wasn't for those experiences, I won't be sitting here talking to you and your audience today. So I'm
Yeah.
grateful for all of them.
Yes. And so interesting too, when I was moving into this next part of my life journey,
Mm-hmm.
I was in a meditation and I said to my guidance, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, follow your books. And so
Mm-hmm.
I've written 4 books, going to be working on a fifth one. And when I looked at the the thread within the 4 books,
Mm-hmm.
it began by understanding my own inner divinity
Yes.
and then how to live my inner divinity in my day-to-day life. Well, I call
Mm-hmm.
that divinely guided living,
Mm.
right?
Like
And
that.
then I moved to Feast and Famine, which is my recovery book.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told by my guidance that I, I was supposed to write that one first, but I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't ready to come into recovery. So I wrote it third.
Yes.
And so that enabled me to really do the healing and the trauma, looking for my trauma patterns. And we'll get more into that in part 3 with Kelvin, because he does it through the beauty of healing.
Mm.
And then my next book was how to move from just being on the spiritual journey to the divine journey, which
Mm-hmm.
the difference of those two is moving from just studying spiritual concepts to becoming them. And
Mm-hmm.
also in the spiritual world, there's an expression, suffering is an option. But in the
Mm-hmm.
divine world, suffering is no longer an option because it no longer exists. And
Mm.
so I had to see what could be next from there,
Mm-hmm.
where now that I've moved through this idea of trying not to, trying, that's a bad word, doing my best effort not to suffer,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's not necessary, right? And so it takes a lot of personal healing and personal knowing to stay so grounded that when suffering situations come in your face, you're like, oh, I don't have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I can just observe them. Have you experienced that in your own life?
Yes. For me, I believe that healing begins by shifting our perception, our worldview, by looking at life the way we see ourselves, the world, and the people in it from a different light. So
Mhm.
all my experiences that I went through, um, from that worldview, from that point of view reference, it was, I felt the intense emotions. So therefore, I had to honor those emotions and allow those emotions to feel those emotions, because I believe it's important for us to feel before we heal. So I was able to kind of like feel those emotions and really sit with them. For many years, I when I felt the intense emotions that I label as intense or negative, I reached for something outside of myself, such as the cocaine, the heroin, the
Right,
alcohol, prescription opiates, pornography, all these different substances or behaviors to help me to distract me from that intense emotion, that intense pain. But once I learned how to sit with those emotions and learn from its wisdom, the messages that those emotions are trying to tell me, I was able to look at it from a different perspective. And once I was able to
yeah.
shift my worldview and the way I look at my experiences in my life as opportunities to learn and grow and evolve from them, that helped me to shift my suffering towards those experiences that I label as intense or negative as well too. So for
Hmm.
me, it's been a process for me, and I believe in taking the middle way. I can honor my divineness that dwells within me, but I also can honor my humanness that dwells within me
Yes,
as
for
well
sure.
too, and
For
really
sure.
keeping myself grounded in my humanness, but also knowing that the same loving divine essence that created all the beauty of nature created me and created each and every one of you,
Yes. And
and that allows me to just to know that um, I'm a beautiful spiritual human being, just like all of us are.
yes. And I also believe that our real goal is to be able to live those that our divine nature in our human nature. And
Yes.
when we can do that, we're doing really well. So we had in the last 2 minutes before break,
Hmm.
you had said to me, addiction is a human experience, not an identity. Can
Yes.
you share with the audience what you mean by that?
Absolutely. I believe that behind the so-called addict, behind the so-called alcoholic, is a human being that experienced a significant amount of trauma, emotional distress, and toxic chronic stress, and looking for a sense of relief from that distress. And we live in a culture and a society that kind of conditions us to reach for something outside of ourselves when we're dealing with any type of pain, whether it's a physical pain or emotional pain. As
Mhm.
a kid growing up, if I ever had a toothache or a headache, I was conditioned to reach for aspirins or Tylenol or something like that. And for many years, I used a physical painkiller such as Oxycontin, Vicodins, and Percocets and heroin to deal with an emotional pain. And it worked for a while for me until it didn't work, and I got caught up in that very vicious cycle of addiction. And not taking away that experience I went through with addictions, because I had a condition, and I had many challenges with addiction. But I
Mhm.
believe in language first, and language really does matter when we come to describing ourselves and really programming our subconscious mind. Because if I look at myself from that perspective, that label as an addict, as an alcoholic, so if I'm programming myself that I'm an addict, I'm an alcoholic into my subconscious mind, when I get stressed out, I get overwhelmed, I get activated or triggered, I'm feeling stressed out, I'm going to do what addicts and alcoholics do. I'm going to
Yeah.
use, I'm going to consume, I'm going to, kind of like find something outside of myself to deal with that distress. And naturally so. So when I look at it from, addiction is a human experience, not a human identity, I feel that it's important for us to normalize and humanize our human experiences that we go through in our lives and understand behind, underneath the addictive states, is a human being that's going through intense emotions and looking for a sense of relief. And I think we're wired as human beings to kind of like, reach for pleasure and avoid pain. So to me,
Yes.
it makes sense why people, if they feel dealing with a lot of intense emotions or going through emotional distress during that addictive state, period, to reach for something outside of themselves. It makes sense as a human being to do that.
Okay.
So switching the way we look at those experiences, I think it helps to break away the stigma and discrimination associated with people that have these experiences with addiction. That keeps a lot of people from even seeking support because of that stigma and discrimination. And because of that, result of that, many people are dying throughout the nation, throughout the world, from overdose, from not seeking that support for dealing with their emotional stress and pain and searching for something outside of themselves, such as opiates and fentanyl and all these drugs to deal with that pain, and they're dying alone.
Yes. So thank you for that. And when we come back from the break, we're going to start talking about the importance of community in
Hmm.
recovery, because I
Yes.
think that's a place where we can all look for that connection. So you're listening to Hungry for Answers with me, Robin Clare, and my guest, Kelvin Young, and we'll be right back. Hello, and welcome back to Hungry for Answers. To connect with me, Robin Clare, please go to clarity.com. That's CLARE-ITY.com. And Kelvin, can you share with everybody how they can reach you?
Yes. People can reach me at Kelvin B. Young, KELVIN, the letter B, Young, YOUNG.com. So KelvinBYoung.com.
Yeah, you can't even be friends with Kelvin on Facebook because he has too many friends now. um, they should up that limit, don't you think?
I know they
Uh,
should.
yeah. So this section is about recovery and community. And as
Mhm,
I said to you earlier, everyone, that I heard Kelvin say connection is the cure for addiction
mhm,
and how important community was. And I was very interested in this because I am not a big community person at this time. I
mhm,
always call myself an introverted extrovert,
mhm,
and I everything I do in my life is extroverted. So I think in my personal life I'm more introverted,
mhm,
and but I'm now beginning with doing Hungry for Answers and doing some other projects I'm working on. I'm
mhm.
beginning to move more back into community because I was telling Kelvin at I had three spiritual retreat centers here in Connecticut, so I was way out there as way past my comfort zone, and now I'm just stepping back in. But Kelvin, you're everywhere, right?
Mhm,
You make it a point to not only be part of, to join, let's say, communities,
mhm,
but to be an active part of them.
mhm.
So let's start with what do you mean by connection is secure?
Mm. I believe wholeheartedly that connection, that true, authentic connection, is the cure from feelings of isolation, loneliness, depression, and different other types of emotional distresses that we experience in our lives. So, when we understand the root causes of addiction, which is that unprocessed emotional pain, the unprocessed trauma that we endured from childhood, from adolescence, from adulthood, and even racial trauma and intergenerational trauma that people of color experience in the United States and other places around the world as well too. And a toxic chronic stress is at the root of addiction. So if we understand the root of addiction, and we understand like how do we heal the root of addiction, is with through
Yeah.
community, is with connection with other people, that authentic human connection. And finding community of like-minded people like yourself that went through difficult moments, difficult struggles with addiction or other types of
Mhm.
emotional distresses and addictive states, when y'all could come together and just really do different activities together, just connect with one another. There's healing power and potential just in that. You know, in that I could put my walls down and I could connect with another human being because they
Yes.
know exactly how I feel and what I've been through and some of the struggles that I experienced in my life.
And
And
I
go
think
ahead.
I think that what you're saying too is that when you're in community of other
Hmm.
folks in recovery, you can really be yourself.
Right.
You don't have to hide at all, because sometimes I think, if you have to hide behind what society thinks you should be doing,
Hmm.
and when you're around other like-minded people, I think that just makes such a difference. And even when I had first had the spiritual centers, which was many years ago,
Hmm.
people would come to the center, Kelvin, and they would be like, my first center, they'd be like, oh my God, I now know I'm not alone. Like, they
Hmm.
were off doing their spiritual journey by themselves. And then here
Hmm.
was the center where we could hold like 200 people at one time,
Hmm.
and they were like, this is incredible. And I know that this is why I encourage now, after talking with you at length, this community, because you never know who shows up, and whether you're helping them or they're helping you, and what kind
Hmm.
of relationships can be established for the long run,
Yeah.
because everybody is in your life for what is it, a reason, a season, or a lifetime, right?
Something. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so when you put yourself out there in community, then you're always going to get something back, and you're always going to give something. So how have you personally utilized community to ground your recovery?
Very good question. I know when I got out of prison, I was very excited to live a life without the use of alcohol and other drugs. But it was very exciting time for me, but it was also very scary as well too, because I didn't, I never really lived a life without the use of alcohol and other drugs. and the people that was in my life, my four brothers, my good friends. This is how we bonded. This is how we connected through alcohol and other drugs, through partying. So
Right.
therefore, I wanted to live a life without the use of those substances and behaviors. I had to find people to really to connect with, and one of the biggest fellowships that people like myself have is the 12-step fellowships, the NA and AA. Whereas that's a place where people can go to, like-minded people, and connect with, and that's the foundation of my recovery. But it got to the point where I needed more in my life, besides NA and AA, and I needed for more from a holistic perspective. And once I was able to see that from that perspective, I had an opportunity to be a founding member of a holistic healing center in Hartford called Toivo. Now, Toivo is, it's a peer run holistic healing center in Hartford, Connecticut, which is led by people that's in recovery, for people that's in recovery, that's dealing with mental health and addiction issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, working with Darren Drum, which is the founder, my mentor and dear friend, he passed away now. But one of the things that we talked about back in 2013 when we was, co-creating Toivo is we wanted to create a place where people could come in, leave all the labels and diagnosis at the
Mhm.
door, and
Mhm.
come and celebrate human life, human potential. Because we believe that no one should be denied the benefits of yoga, meditation, sound healing, and different other mind body practices based on social economic standing, psychiatric histories, or experiences with addiction. That healing from these different modalities were for everyone. But oftentimes, it seemed like a luxury for a lot of people, or a privileged practice to do for many, many people. So we
Yeah.
offered all free classes and workshops, seminars for our community. And by being a part of that community, helping it to grow and helping people to support me on my journey as well too, as I support them, because it was based on mutuality. It wasn't a hierarchy
Yeah.
there. We were based on mutuality, where we were all connected. We all go through different challenges and situations, and we were there for one another. And that helped me to sustain my recovery to this day. I have over 13 years in sustained recovery to this day, and it's because of the people that I have in my life that helped me to move forward, without picking up a substance to help me to deal with the distress. I could pick up the phone now instead of picking up a bag of dope, or picking up a blunt, or picking up a bottle of E&J, or some type of hard um, cognac or liquor to help me to deal with the distress that I felt for many, many years.
Yeah. So what recommendations do you have for folks that might be listening
Hmm.
that, you know, they're either in still in addiction, or they're on in their recovery path, but they feel like, "Phew, I did it. Like I don't want to do anymore."
Yeah.
Right? I'm done. I did it. I did it. But what you're really saying, Kelvin, is that with community,
Hmm.
they can really live a much more profound recovery.
Hmm.
And because, again, as I said earlier, you're not only getting it, you're receiving it, right?
Hmm.
You're giving and receiving. And so ultimately, in the long term, do you think that people can go at it alone?
I think human beings are wired to be in community and connection. So therefore, many people have tried to do it alone and white knuckle it, so to speak, and try to do it on their own. And that sense of isolation that could keep people really in that state of distress. And if
Yeah.
you're not connecting with other people, you're going to connect with something, whether it's that bottle of E&J, or whether it's that bag of heroin, that bag of cocaine, some different opiates. And that's what it was for me. Those substances, I had a relationship with those substances because it did something for me. It took away that emotional distress that I felt in my life. It took away the sadness, the grief, the feelings of insecurity, of self worthlessness. It filled the emptiness that I felt inside of myself for a very long time, even though it was a temporary relief, but it was a relief nonetheless. So those substances did something for me when I connected with them, but
Yeah.
it became a negative consequences after the effect. And that's when it became a problem, and that's when it became an addiction for me. And it was an unhealthy, toxic relationship, but it was a relationship nonetheless. And I had to learn how to divorce that relationship. And like any other relationship, going through a divorce or breakup, there's a period of grieving. There's a period of sadness. And you're gonna feel that intense emotions. So therefore, doing it by yourself, it's
Harder.
I wouldn't recommend
I
it.
wouldn't
Because
recommend it either. Um, and it's just interesting because there's so many people that are listening that they're saying, "Oh, that's not me. I'm not
mhm,
a drug addict," but we all are suffering. We all
mhm,
have experienced trauma that
mhm,
creates suffering in our lives. And we may not think of the way that we manage our suffering as addiction, like food or
mhm,
Netflix. I always pick
mhm.
on Netflix, but maybe we watch too much TV, or maybe we stay in a bad relationship, or maybe we stay at a sucky job.
Mhm,
All of those things are a way to eliminate suffering, and we can be addicted to those too. So I
mhm,
wanted to make sure that all of this wonderful information that Kelvin is sharing is not just for people who are in hardcore addiction. This is for all of us. This is for everyone who is suffering and perhaps needs to start looking at their trauma patterns. And
mhm,
we're going to go right into that after the break, because we're going to start talking about Kelvin's wonderful sound healing practice. So
mhm.
we'll be right back. Hello, and welcome back to Hungry for Answers. So, I'm going to give away to the first caller a copy of my book, Feast and Famine Healing Addiction with Grace. So, here's the number 800-930-2819. And so, this is Robin Clare. And if you'd like to connect with me, please go to clarity.com. That's CLARE-ITY.com. And I'm here with Kelvin Young. And just as a reminder, again, Kelvin, how can people reach out to you?
People can reach out to me at www.kelvinbyoung.com. KELVIN, the letter B, Young, YOUNG.com.
Perfect.
KelvinByoung.com.
KelvinByoung.com, everybody.
Yes.
So, this next section is an interesting one, because I think we're going to be talking about something that a lot of people don't know about, but it's an incredible healing modality. And so, I want to introduce this by going back and talking about something that Kelvin said earlier, and that is that we have to get to the the root of addiction
Mm-hmm.
if we want to sustain long-term recovery. And what he means by that, I believe, is that at the root of addiction is unhealed trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't heal that, we cannot sustain our recovery. And what we find in a lot of recovery programs is that they're first interested in getting you off of the substance, which is not the problem, but part of the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're talking about here is, okay, you're in recovery now, you're no longer using, but what do you need to do to heal that trauma that created the suffering that was unhealed, that moved you towards a vice or a habit that became an addictive pattern in you? So we're going to be looking at sound, so that you can go within with sound to
Mm-hmm.
find the trauma. So Kelvin, can you talk to us about what is sound healing?
Sure. My teacher, Zachary Zachariah Blackburn, he taught me that sound healing is the intentional use of sound to create an environment which becomes the catalyst for our healing in the mental and emotional, spiritual, as well as physical aspects of our beings.
Mhm.
So, utilizing sound, to really be that vehicle for us to go within and really connect to our inner landscape, our inner resources, and where we can just really connect to all that distress and pain that dwells inside of us. And through the process of entrainment, when we train with the sounds and vibrations and frequencies from the different healing tools that we use in sound work and sound healing work, it takes us from that waking state, and in scientific term is known as the beta state of brainwave activities, And when we train with the sounds, it takes us from that awakened state, a beta, down to the alpha state, which is a relaxed state. And many people go even deeper and even further into that theta delta state of brainwave activity, which is a more deeper meditative state. As when we're in that alpha, theta, delta state, that's when we can connect to our creativity. That's when we can connect to, that inner essence of who we are. That's when we can connect to that inner healer that dwells inside of each and every one of us. And I really believe that all of life questions, all the answers to our life question dwells inside of us.
Oh,
But taking that
totally
time
agree.
out,
I'm sorry, I have to just stop there.
yes,
Totally agree with that.
yeah,
100%. There is not a single
hmm
answer to our lives that we cannot find inside. And I shared this previously.
hmm
I was making a decision on a house sale with my husband, and I had this like veil of unknowing in front of me, and I
hmm
had to honor that I wasn't going deep enough to find the answer. And
hmm
so then I went really deep inside to say, why am I unsure of this
hmm
decision? And in there I could find the answer.
the
So
power of
what
sound, and that's how
the
sound can
power
take
of
us to
sound.
that place of connectedness, and it allows us to maintain our sense of stillness. And oftentimes in our modern day society, we're always on the go. We feel like we're on that hamster wheel all the time, just moving, 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 moving. But with sound, it just helps us to facilitate a sense of calmness and a state of being where we connect to all those answers to life questions we have that dwells inside of us.
Yes, because I was going to ask you, what is it about sound?
Hmm
And we're talking about really beautiful sounds. We're not talking
hmm
about someone taking two garbage can lids and banging them together in front of you.
Right.
We're talking about the most beautiful sounds that are in harmony with the earth sounds, with the
hmm
vibrations of air and water, and all of that. And this is the sounds we're talking about. So what is it about these sounds that actually brings someone to those different states of consciousness so that they could find the answers for their lives?
I think many human beings, particularly in our modern day society, we live in a sympathetic dominance state. So therefore, we're often in that survival mode. We're in that stress response mode, that fight or flight. And many people that experience trauma, we're in that fight or flight or freeze and appease mode as well too. So therefore, we're in a constant state of stress. And over a period of time, that when that stress becomes chronic, that's when stress can wreak havoc on our health and well-being. One of the things it does is weaken our immune system that makes us more susceptible to illnesses, diseases, flus, and viruses, and what have you. So as we're dealing with the era of COVID right now, it's so important that we keep our immune system strong and up and our stress levels down. And sound healing, it helps to activate and stimulate the vagus nerve. It helps us to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system to help us to calm our minds, to relax our bodies, to feel our emotions because it's so important for us to feel before we heal, right? And also help us to nourish our souls as well too. When we listen to certain sounds and vibrations and frequencies, it just really elicits that relaxation response within us.
Yes.
And when we're in a relaxed state, our body have a natural, innate ability to heal itself.
So here,
Um,
I want to share
that's
something
really,
too.
hmm
So this morning I'm writing a workbook called The
hmm
Right Recovery, WRITE, and I'm
hmm
going to teach it to other recovery professionals as well as individuals.
hmm
And so, in order to write that, I asked Siri to put on meditation music. And
hmm
so she put on this beautiful music that was allowing me to go deep within, to find my creative nature, and to get guidance for what should be in the workbook. And you can
hmm
see when you're working on a project like that, when it starts coming together, it means that you're deeply connected to your own creativity, your own intuition.
hmm
And then, opposite of that, I needed to clean the kitchen today. I needed to empty the dishwasher and clean the kitchen. And I said, Siri, put on Stevie Wonder radio. So I could like dance around the kitchen, right?
hmm
So music serves all types of purpose. That got me energized and jazzed to just keep moving and, bopping around. But we can see where how sound is such an important part of our life in all the ways that we're working.
Yeah. Sound is around us all the time. And the one thing about sound healing and the tools that I utilize, not only you can hear the sounds, but you can feel the vibrations from the sounds as well too, which penetrates to the cellular level. My friend Nikki Myers, she's the founder of Yoga and 12-Step Recovery. She often says that our issues are in our tissues. And I find that to be very true. The trauma that we experience in our life, those emotions that we suppress or repress, for whatever reason, it's in our bodies, it's in our muscles, it's in our tissues. Our cells have memory. Our body keeps score of all those experiences that we go through in our lives. Vibration and frequencies and tones from the crystal singing bowls, the metal singing bowls, the drum, the gong, it penetrates to the cellular level.
Yes.
And helps to release some of that stuck energy or stagnant emotions and trauma that's in our body. And oftentimes they're released in the form of tears, which is a very, very beautiful thing. It also has different ways of people get different tingling sensations, as well too, in certain parts of the body. Some people get different colors and images may come up. Different thoughts they haven't thought about in a very long time come up to your conscious awareness. Allows people to process things in a very healthy way. And what comes up from the subconscious during a sound healing experience, when it comes up to the conscious awareness, that's where we have the power, the choice to make some changes in our lives. And that's when I think one of the greatest powers that we have is the power of choice.
Yeah, and I also, listening to what you were just saying, the tears, the tingling, the thoughts. I studied with Sri Amma Bhagavan at the Oneness University, and they would say that when you have the tingling, when you have the tears, when you have the aha moments, that's when you're putting the emotional charge out of the trauma. Right. And so then you can move forward to make better decisions. And once the emotional charge is out, I think then you can begin to accept greater grace into your life. So we're gonna take another break. Wow, this is going very fast, but thank you, Kelvin. So you're listening to Hungry for Answers with me, Robin Clare, and my special guest, Kelvin Young, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Hungry for Answers with me, Robin Clare, and my special guest, Kelvin Young. So in the last segment, we're talking about sound healing. And we're moving into the segment on utilizing your gifts to serve others, which is really one and the same. And in the last segment, I wanted to ask you, Kelvin, and we're going to ask it now, is what can sound healing do when used within a community setting?
Oh, that's a very good question. Sound, like music, it brings people together in community setting. When we talk about that connection, during the sound healing sessions, the group sessions that I facilitate, the intention for most people is to come there to experience the sound healing. But before the sound healing session begins, they have opportunities for people to share where they're at, do a check-in with themselves, and having that opportunity to be seen, to be heard, to be validated and to felt wherever you're at in this journey that we call life. It's part of the human experience. But when we're doing it together collectively, with the intention, one of the things that another teacher taught is like intention plus frequencies equals healing. So therefore, our intentions, our group intentions in that space, along with the vibrations and frequencies, along with my intention, it really does collective healing within that space. So people coming together from all different walks of life, coming together in community, and to share an healing experience to one another. But sound healing, the events that I put together, it brings people together in community in one space, so we can come and celebrate human life and potential, and come celebrate and facilitate healing with the vibrations and frequencies of sound all together in one space, which is a very powerful collective healing experience.
And do you ever, have you ever done or plan to do any events that to help our country, to help this world, to help the animals, to help humanity, like more like events that are focused on sending the healing out into the world as well?
Well, I think I do that already through individual. I think we could be the change that we want to see in the
Yes.
world. It starts with us,
Yes.
and when we do our work, our individual work, that's when we make up the collective aspects of humanity together. So therefore, when we do our own inner work, one person at a time, one individual at a time, we're changing the world. We
Yes,
creating
we
the
are.
world that we really want to see from that experience alone. So therefore, there's a macro perspective and a collective perspectives that needs to be addressed and a lot of issues that's going on. But we make up the system that we live under. So therefore, how do we shift our consciousness? I think Albert Einstein said that we can't change a problem or fix an issue with the same level of consciousness that created it. So therefore, it takes us individually to shift our consciousness, and vibrations and frequency and sounds have that potential, has that power to really help us to shift the way we see ourselves, the world, and the people in it in a very powerful and transformative way. And by doing that one person at a time, connecting, different sound healers around the world, doing this work, this is how we create the change that we want to see collectively
Yes.
in our society.
Yes, because thank you for saying that, because I forgot you're not the only one doing this.
Yes.
There's lots of people doing this. So you're
Yes.
right. World peace does begin within, right?
Yes.
And so yes, as we all heal and shift our consciousness, it's like a ripple in a pond,
hmm
right? Because
Yes.
I also believe that when you do your own healing, you heal your family,
hmm
and then you heal generations backwards and forwards. So that when you have the courage to be the hero of your own life and
hmm
do the healing, it's not just for you. It's
That's
for
right.
everyone that has ever been an ancestor, anyone who's going to be a future person in your lineage, and of course, people
Mhm.
that you're currently with. So let's talk about your book,
Mhm.
Freedom from Behind Bars, which is an ebook, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what was your thought process behind writing that book?
That was a goal that I had while I was incarcerated, when I was in prison, and I wanted to create something just to talk about my experience and share with other people. 88% of people that's incarcerated are traumatized human beings that have experiences with mental health challenges and addiction. So therefore, 95% of people that's in prison today have a release date. They're coming back to our community. So it's so important that we address some of the issues that people face while incarcerated. So when they come back to the community, they're able to not reoffend, not be a part of that recidivism statistic that people get caught up in all the time, and really begin the healing process that they need to do in order to find freedom from that recidivism cycle, and also from any addictions or mental health challenges that they're experiencing. And one of the things I've learned that people that's incarcerated are traumatized human beings, and they often get re-traumatized within prison, within the criminal justice system.
Sure.
So therefore, I wanted to write something just to talk about my experience with addiction and trauma and incarceration, and how I utilize that time wisely to really begin to begin to doing the inner work I needed to do in order to find freedom, to shift my perspective and world of view from a victim mentality to more of an empowered mentality. And when I was able to do that, I was able to really truly find freedom for the substances that I was using for a very long time to cope with my distress. But I was also able to break that cycle that I was in and out of prison, in and out of prison all the time. And today I go back into prisons, but today I
Yes.
go through prisons in the front door, and I'm bringing my sound healing instruments instead of going through the back door in shackles and an orange jumpsuit. So
Mhm.
therefore, just really taking that opportunity and just to talk about my experiences and give solutions to how to really address some of the issues that people that's incarcerated face when they're dealing with trauma, when they're dealing with mental health challenges, and when they're dealing with addictions.
So can you talk about the how that's all received in the prisons?
Or the sound healing, people.
Sound healing, or just your whole conversation?
Well, when I come in there, I share my story right off the rip because I believe that builds a sense of credibility with the people that's incarcerated, knowing that I've been there, I've been incarcerated, and you see the walls go down. And most people, when I first go in there, they never experienced sound healing before, so they don't know what to think. They see all these different bowls and all these different instruments, and they have had a lot of misconceptions about these practices, just like me. I had a lot of misconceptions when I was in prison about yoga, meditation, and sound healing. And to be quite blunt, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me practicing these modalities. I didn't see people of color practicing these modalities, so I didn't think it was for me. And many people have that same mindset as well too. When I share my story, and then I talk a little bit about sound healing, the benefits of it, but the real changing factor for most people is their experience, their own personal experience with the vibrations and sounds and frequencies. And people, after the after effect of a sound healing experience, you should see the people. They're like, "Oh my God, I never felt so relaxed in a
Yeah.
prison setting," because you got to be in survival mode majority of the time, even while you sleep. You got to be in survival mode in prison.
Yeah.
But many of the people that's incarcerated, they were so relaxed. Some fell asleep, and it was a total awesome experience for many people. And I get the comments all the time, and it's awesome. I thank the Connecticut Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services for allowing me to bring these modalities to support the people that's incarcerated.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And so what else is coming up? We have just a couple of minutes left.
Hmm.
What else is coming up in your event world? And also, also I just want to share that Kelvin is available for private sessions.
Hmm.
He's right in Farmington, I believe.
Yes.
And yeah, so yeah, in the last minute that we have, Kelvin, can you share what's coming up? Anything special?
Absolutely. Yep. The Bridge Healing Arts Center on 304 Main Street in Farmington. Every other Thursday from 6 to 7:30. I do group sound healing sessions. You're more than welcome to come. My next one is on the 26th. And also in October 27th to the 29th, CCAR, they having their National Recovery Conference
Right.
down in Florida. And I'll be presenting down there on sound as a holistic approach to healing in addiction recovery. So I'm very excited to go down there and to connect with other people that's on a journey like myself. The last time I've been there, it was a very awesome time. And so I love going and being a part of their recovery conference. And also the Phoenix. There's another active recovery community all over the nation, and they're here in Hartford, Connecticut as well too. And I do sound healing sessions every Wednesday from 7:30 to 8:30 in Hartford. You could go to the
That's great.
website, the Phoenix Center, the Phoenix.org for more information about that.
That's wonderful. So, Kelvin, I just want to say thank you so much for being with me today here on Hungry for Answers. And
Thank
to our
you.
audience, yeah, if you're struggling with addiction and you don't know where to turn, just know that you are not alone, that there are many, many communities, as Kelvin pointed out, that can help you. But you
Yes.
can also go into your inner world and ask for guidance. And so thank you, everyone, for being here, for listening, wherever you are. And know that we will be back in 2 weeks. So thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Thank you for tuning into Hungry for Answers. Learning to love ourselves is the one true solution to addiction. Make a commitment to healing today and see how you can reach your ultimate potential. Remember, you have a divine right to a life filled with love, joy, peace, and abundance. To learn more about me and my offerings, please go to clarity.com. That's Clare, CLARE-ITY.com. See you next time.